a good way to think of it is pretty much anything that is beneficial to the poor and the working class in America. If you're part of the poor and you're part of the working class, if it's beneficial for you, it's probably illegal. And because a lot of people are waiting around for the orange messiah to try and fix everything from the top down. Government can't fix anything from the top down. All it does is make it worse. So if the American people got together, for example, and said, hey, we're tired of these low rent wages. We're tired of all this. We're tired of having, no jobs here. We're tired of everything sucking. Like, okay, so the Americans get together and say, we're going to start deporting all these illegals. We're not going to wait around for ICE. We're going to start deporting these people ourselves because the private sector tends to be more efficient at this stuff than anything to do with the government sector. Also more entertaining because you go down to the border, you build a giant slingshot, pull them back 600 feet and launch them back over the border. And I mean, that would get huge ratings all over the internet, dude. It would break the internet if you did that. I mean, especially since, those, by the time they leave the slingshot, they're probably going 200 miles an hour. It'd be awesome. So I'm pointing out that if you did something like that, that actually helps the poor and the working class. It absolutely does. And a bunch of, unfortunately, a bunch of conservatives are the worst people for this. You're the hypocrites of the highest order. You are the worst sort of people. You're the worst kind of hypocrites because you still keep backing the blue. Because we all know what happened is if the average American said, that's it, we're tired of these low wages and we're going to get rid of all these illegals, just doing that, who would the police show up and arrest if Americans did that? Right? Pigs would show up and they'd arrest the people trying to take their country back. In other words, people trying to help the poor and the working class. They would get in trouble for that, right? And who would support that? Well, that would be all of the conservatives. They would totally support that. Yeah, that's right. Law and order, blah, blah, blah. Nothing about morality or justice. No. Don't do that. Let's do law and order because that's more vague, right? I mean, that's the conservative mantra is just continue lying to yourselves. See, you won't get together with the left and understand that the left, some of the people on the left are correct about this. You need to defund the police and get rid of them. You don't need the police anymore. All they do is get in the way of delivering, things like, I don't know, justice of getting illegals out of your country, because the Orange Messiah is never going to do those millions of deportations. Dude, he's never getting rid of 30 to 40 million. I've heard estimates as high as 50. He's never getting rid of those people. Even if you were to deport, I did the numbers, like, dude, one time it was like, it takes you like 4 years to get rid of them. Even if you're deporting like 40,000 a day, it still takes like 5 or 6 years. All right. And it's not going to happen, especially since they're dropping like 800 to 900 anchor babies every day. 650, I think was the minimum number. Anchor babies per day in the U.S. So you still have to deal with all that. So yeah, I mean, but because you guys keep supporting all this, it's no different than Britain, the country formerly known as Britain, which I guess has been like overrun and completely, like, now it's like the people there probably need to take their country back. But now if they do that, then they're going to fight the police because the police are going to end up fighting them because they want them there because they need the cheap labor. That's the reality, is that the Western countries are trying to keep the Ponzi scheme going by just importing anybody. Right? Like, I mean, even if those people don't even like the country, even if they don't like the people there, even if all they do is complain about it the whole time, as we see with, like a lot of the visa holders who all they do is they get to the U.S. and they just complain about how horrible the U.S. is. Like, well, go back to your land of cheap geniuses and, where you all have iPhones, but no toilets for some reason. Go back there. Right? I mean, this is just reality that I'm talking about here. I mean, like, I'm not making moral judgments on the other side. I'm just looking at this from a surface level. Like, this doesn't make any sense. If you wanted to help the poor and the working class of Americans, you would get the illegals out of here right now. But the Orange Messiah is not going to do that. If he did, wages would come up. And when the wages come up for domestically, that creates domestic inflation. What that does then is that'll start collapsing the dollar. Now, that's my stated mission here. I'd love to see the collapse of the dollar because it needs to happen. But yeah, I mean, that's why the Orange Man will never do that. He will never do that. It's why he'll never cut off all the work visas either. He'll never make work visa should go to zero. You have unemployment everywhere. Not a day goes by on TikTok. I don't see some video of some guy who's like, man, I went for my 19th interview. And then, come on. And then it turns out they hired an H-1B or something. Like, dude, it's all the time. You can scroll TikTok for 10 minutes and you'll find somebody talking about that. Probably sitting in their car talking about how they went to an interview and, now the company they dissolve that position now. And like, they just hired a bunch of, all they did was just say, yeah, that's it. So if you've got a bunch of Americans, and by the way, keep in mind, before you guys go into the comment section and start making a bunch of fools of yourselves about, more racism and like, dude, no. Any other country, if they were being invaded, right, but like to this level, and they had a bunch of unemployment, they would be saying the same thing. Like, dude, get out. Think of it like this. What if there's I think there's 3 or 4 million homeless in the U.S., and there shouldn't be. That's a ridiculous number, and that's because housing prices are too high. They need to collapse. And of course, if you get rid of all the illegals and all the visas, then housing prices pretty much collapse. But there's 3 to 4 million homeless, last time I checked. What if the U.S. just rounded up 3 to 4 million homeless people and shoved them into Tijuana, like literally shoved them like across the border into Tijuana? What would Mexico say? Mexico would freak out. They would go completely crazy. They'd go ballistic. They'd say, dude, hold on. This is an act of war. We consider this an act of war. You're basically getting rid of the problems you created. You created those problems, and now you're pawning off your problems on us. That's what they'd say. That's what any rational country would say. Any country not run by a complete orange idiot would say that. Any country not run by apparently whoever the hell is running that clown show in Europe, any normal country would say that. They'd say, dude, you created those problems, you fix it. Don't send them here, because those are your problems that you created. So yeah, if you want to actually, do anything for the poor and the working class in America, then that's what you would take that kind of tact. But then that wouldn't be very popular now, would it? And a whole bunch of people on both the right and left wouldn't know what to do with any of that, because they wouldn't be able to virtue signal in any direction, because I just covered all of you.